Jamie. Hi, everybody. As Jamie said, I'm with the Harrisburg School District, and I do have to apologize for my colleague, Travis Lape. He is in an admin meeting this morning, so he's working through some of our distance learning opportunities for our learners this year. We're going to talk a lot about internships and our K-12 continuum of career-based education at Harrisburg and just the approach that we're taking through that process. This has been about a 3.5-year journey for us. So Travis and one of our high school counselors started, like 2017, kind of thinking through what career-based learning really should look like on a K-12 continuum and not so much of a one-shot, one-off experience. So not just the one-time job shadow, not just the one-time internship sporadically for kids, but how can we truly build a continuum of learning for our learners? So that's what we're going to look at today. As Jamie said, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat there. I'll try to get to all of them at the end. And if there's something you want to continue talking about afterwards, my contact information is on the slides, and I'll drop those in the shared folder once this is over. Otherwise, all the other resources that I have on the slides are already in that shared folder as well. Does anybody have any quick questions before we start? All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. Maybe I'm going to share my screen. Let's try this. I will say, although I've done this a few times, I am not a Zoom expert. All right, let's try. There we go. We had district-wide updates on all of our technology, and I had to go change some settings really quick. So my apologies for that. Here we go. Let me try to move some Google bars around here quickly. All right, can somebody give me a thumbs up? Is everything looking okay on your screens? Great. So I'm just going to talk about, again, career-focused education and career exploration here at Harrisburg. The big three things that we talked about that we really want to make sure these experiences are real, relevant, and rigorous for all of our kids, K-12. Without that, we felt like there was a piece that was just simply missing. We really embrace CTE in Harrisburg, and if you know Mrs. Tracy Kern from Harrisburg, you know that that's very, very true. So we are big CTE supporters. And a way to kind of get our community on board is we just created the very simple hashtag Tigers Work, and we've had a lot of business and community support follow that hashtag, and then if they're doing something with learners in the community, they're using it as well. So that's just kind of a really simple plug there to do something creative with your social media. It doesn't have to be fancy. Create a very basic Twitter page or a Facebook page. I'll tell you what, Instagram has really hit hard with our high school kids. That's been really, really good. Here's my basic contact information. So we did create Tiger Career Tech EDU on Instagram, and that was used pretty heavily by me. I kind of monitor that account, walk around, showcase what's happening in the district at the CTE level with our learners, and showcase different collaborations that we're working on. And of course, when March hit, that pretty much put a stop to that. But I'm really excited to pick it up again here in the fall. And then you can also follow me on Twitter there for primarily business education and career related topics. My contact information is there as well. A little bit about me. I've been in education for about 8 years. It is my second career. I was in marketing for about 5 years before that. I got my undergrad from Morningside College, and then I have my master's in education from USF. So I went the non-traditional educator route, which I know a lot of people in CTE have done as well. I will say I think it's really helped me just see the relevance of true career education, and I'm really, really glad that I have that background and that experience. How we kind of got this all off the ground is we wanted to connect learners' interests to their actual learning. So we were seeing a disconnect between, I like art, how do I get to use art in a job? So that's where we're trying to help put those connections together. So truly looking at student engagement and future decision making and how we can collaboratively put those things together. We know engagement is super high for our elementary kids, right? Kids like coming to school at the elementary level, K-5 all the way even kind of through middle school. And then at 9, 12 or 8, 9 grade level, engagement starts to drop off, and then we really lose those kids 10, 11, 12. There's just disinterest, and a lot of that could be chalked up to adolescence and other things. But how can we truly keep student engagement high? And we found that if we do these 3 things, it really helps. So provide real world experiences for all of our kids K-12. They have to be real. They have to be authentic. Emphasize rigor through relevant content and experiences. There's some great programs out there that can help you do this. For example, if you have JA come into your classroom, Junior Achievement, I know is available through across the state. We have partnered with the Sioux Falls Development Foundation. They've put some great programming on for our kids. And smaller and locally, think of your local Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development Corporations through your counties or your local regions, because those have been absolutely phenomenal for us. So they have to be rigorous, but they also have to be relevant. So we need to know what that business community in your area is really needing in kids, and that's okay to start at kindergarten. So that's something that we are really excited about. And then ultimately, everything we know in education goes back to relationship. We need to connect with our learners and really develop that relationship with them on a personal level. And I can tell you, for me, that's been a challenge in a bigger school district. So traditionally, I went to a small school. I went to a tiny school in Northeast Nebraska where I graduated with 46 kids. I went to Morningside College, which I had 300 kids in my graduating class. And now I'm in a building with 1,200 high school kids every day. So that's different. And it's something that I've had to pivot and kind of learn to do a little bit differently, but I do believe you can truly make a significant connection and a relationship with every single learner that you interact with. So the Harrisburg way, you know, we kind of look at the old approach of career exploration being an isolated one-shot event. Learning was more or less accidental. You know, if you saw something, you may have observed it and then you learned it along the way. You report to a boss or a supervisor. It may be traditional, it may be unpaid. Those things typically didn't change. But there really wasn't a lot of relationship there with your employer or your boss or your supervisor. So we wanted to flip the script on this, and we wanted to create a new way. We really wanted to build a continuum of workplace opportunities for kids. We wanted this to be a really structured learning environment with a structured learning component. And if you've heard of Career Launch throughout South Dakota in the Department of Ed and Department of Labor, we looked at Career Launch, and we started with Bring Your A Game, and then we took some of the parts of that curriculum that we enjoyed, and then we kind of Harrisburgized it a little bit. So we took a couple of those activities from A Game, which is fantastic. It's a great place to start, and I know Yankton uses that curriculum as well. But we took some of those activities, went to our local business folks and said, hey, what are we missing, or what do you want for kids? What skills do you want for kids to have in our area? And we threw those in there as well. So that structured learning component is instructed by myself. So I teach about a 2 to 3 week internship onboarding course at the beginning of every semester. And that varies in length depending on what our kids' interests are. So we have interns in anything from automotive all the way through medical, through veterinary, to art, to fashion, to pretty much any interest you have. I had one young lady that was interested in mortuary science. So she was at a funeral home. So we have vast interests, but that structured learning component, the feedback we've gotten back from businesses has been huge. They say our kids are prepared, they're respectful, they understand the expectations of a workplace, and that has been different from what they've seen of interns or work-based learners in the past. So I would really emphasize having some type of structured learning component first before you send those kids out to businesses. The supervisor then becomes a workplace mentor, and we've really seen those relationships grow and flourish with our learners and the people in industry. And then we want our learners to have a 360-degree view of the industry. So maybe they're interested in accounting or finance, and so maybe we can place them inside of a bank or a credit union or any type of business that has their own financial side, but we really wanted to make sure they could see all aspects of that industry. So although they may be in an accounting internship, the business partners that we have are sure to give them a good overview of what their whole business looks like. Because as we know, you're probably not going to stay in the same position for 30 years. That model of workforce development is pretty much gone, especially in the career and technical education world. We see that a lot. So you may start out, if you look at the medical field, for example, you may start out as a CNA and you may someday retire as the senior nursing supervisor. So there's lots of different things you can do inside of one specific business or industry. We wanted to make sure that we had all workplace opportunities in place for our kids. So public sector, private sector, volunteering, nonprofits, entrepreneurial, education. We've created partnerships with over 150 businesses in the Harrisburg and Sioux Falls area, which I'm really proud of, because last year when I started, we had about 90. So we've added about 60 last year, which is really great. I know there's going to be some questions of, with COVID, what does that look like this year for us and all those, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. But those partners are absolutely phenomenal. And I will say the best way to build those partnerships was to reach out to the local chambers of commerce. So again, even if you're in a small rural community, there's got to be a group somewhere of businesses that come together, or at least a couple point people in your community that you can reach out to and start visiting with them, even if it's the mayor of your small town. So keep that in mind. And then we really wanted these things to be strategic and systematic and have really great relationship foundations. So one young lady that we have, we'll see her success story in just a minute, but her name is Lyric. And she was CNA certified, then she wanted to become EMT certified, so she took that course. She on one day wants to be a surgeon, and so she's going to Augustana this fall to get her pre-med underway, and the connections she's made through Sanford in her internship partnership already as an 18-year-old student blow me away. She knows more people within that organization than nurses that have worked there for 10 years. So just the ability to build relationships in her 12-ish, 100+ hour experience has been amazing. All right, just checking the time. I tend to talk a lot. Here's just a visual of what our K-12 career exploration looks like. So we want to expose kids right away at the elementary level. So on my left-hand side of the slides here, this is the Sioux Falls Home Builders Foundation, and they are working with 5th graders at what we call a Learner Interest Day. They bring in all the tools, they bring in all the supplies. We simply supply the learners in the space, and they're making toolboxes. And then these girls kind of over on the other table there, they're making birdhouses. So they had a choice of a toolbox or a birdhouse. And they got to work with business and industry professionals and use power tools and everything, under supervision, of course, to create their project in about a 2-hour experience in their home building. They didn't have to travel, they didn't have to get on a bus, any of that. So that's the elementary level, and then to switch over to middle school and high school coursework. So that's Mr. Konechki. He's our building trades instructor. So he's speaking with learners right there. They erect a house in our giant Morton Shed building on our property through the Sioux Falls Home Builders Foundation. So just showing you that transition from elementary exposure to high school and middle school coursework to the picture that we have on the far right there. Those are our learners volunteering with Habitat for Humanity in Harrisburg. So they helped put up a twin home for 2 single moms that both have children in our district. And so, just to show you from elementary all the way through these young guys right here, seniors in high school, how they can be interested in building trades or construction, and we can really go out and use those interests to show them how they can truly benefit themselves and their community. A little bit about Learner Interest Days. So these young gals right here, they were in the culinary section of our Learner Interest Day. They were just making simple dipped pretzels that you would make at holiday time. So it was quick, easy, inexpensive. And this was hosted by our FACS program and our FCCLA program. So they were the learner experts in that classroom. In the past, Hy-Vee has come in to do demonstrations with our kids. We have Sassy Cupcakes in Harrisburg that has come in to help kids decorate cupcakes. But we have everything at the elementary level, from culinary, veterinary, construction, dance, basketball, dog grooming, pretty much anything you can think of. And it's been really interesting. And how that process works of a Learner Interest Day is the committees at the school contact me. So I'm the district career and technical education coordinator. So I work with elementaries all the way through the high school educators. And they contact me and say, hey, we're thinking about doing a learner interest day. Here's the date we have. Can you help us set that up? And I say, sure, absolutely. So on the right-hand side of the slide is just an example of the letter that I send out. Talks about which building we're going to be in, what day we're going to have learner interest day. Typically it's for an hour or so. I believe there's an example of this in that shared slide, or in that shared folder as well. Just talking a little bit about the learning environment that we have at our elementary buildings, and then the goal of trying to find 15 to 20 different professionals in their area that are willing to discuss their career and have some type of hands-on activity for learners to do with them. And so sometimes I get responses from people and they're like, hey, I really want to do this, but I don't know what activity to do. So then part of my role is to help them find the activity that suits their business. So one of those was a bank. So typically you're going to think, why would you want a bank to come in and talk to 3rd to 5th graders about, you know, their banking career? But I don't know about you, but my 5-year-old loves money. So I think that was super fun. So the banking folks said, hey, we'd love to do this. We'd love to help you out, but we really don't know what activity we should do. And I said, are you kidding me? This is easy. You're a bank, piggy banks. That's money. So they're like, oh yeah, sure. So, you know, they kind of ran with that after it. They just need help. The businesses need help on the education side, coming up with some of those ideas, especially at the elementary level. I would say that their willingness to participate is always really high. They're just hesitant to say yes because they're unsure of what their activity would be with an age group that's a little bit less than middle school or high school. So I send that letter out, people start emailing me back. I schedule all those folks. I reach out to the committee at the individual elementary building. They help me put those presenters in classrooms, and then I get schedules out to the presenters. And the day of, I go over to the elementary building and help just facilitate people in and out. And we organize the kids by their specific interest area, so they get to choose what they want to attend. And we try to do one of those once a semester at each elementary building. So it's a really fun way just to get that career exposure to elementary kids at a young age. Middle school career exploration looks a little bit different for us as well. This is an example of one of our events called Lifestyle, Community, and Connections. So we try to group as many of the things together so that kids can see, I don't necessarily just have to go to work and then come home and be with my family. These are really encapsulating things. You know, you want to enjoy your job, you want to enjoy your career, and we want to help them see that now. So if we'll kind of just go across the slide, on the bottom there, or excuse me, on the top there, we have young people learning how to do CPR. So that's through our Sanford Medical Partnership. They come in with the little resuscitation models, and they're learning a quick CPR and Heimlich maneuver choking procedure. And I just think, how valuable is that to a student in 6th grade that maybe has an interest in the medical healthcare profession, but doesn't really know what that looks like? You know, this is a way for them to truly see, oh, wow, this is where I could be heading. And this is a skill that I would need to have every single day in my profession. So this middle school lifestyle, community, and connections was for all 6th through 8th graders at North Middle School. So all 630 some kids had at least a 1-hour experience on a Tuesday before Christmas break, where they got to choose which career or activity they wanted to explore. So that's medical health care there on the top left-hand side. And if we move across, the second one there is somebody who owns their own gym. So if you've ever seen, her name is Chelsea, and it's called Pound. So they take these sticks and they hold them up, and they have little routines for exercise, super high intensity, high cardio workouts. So she came throughout the day and did activities with our kids. And she talked a lot about health, wellness, and what it's like to own your own fitness business. In the middle there in the slide, it's a little hard to see, but all the way to the right-hand side of the picture, that's Miss Kara. And Miss Kara owns a dance studio in Harrisburg. So those are 8th grade boys hip hop dancing exploring dance. And she talks about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, to own her own dance studio. She was an SDSU graduate, and she came back home to Harrisburg and opened her own dance studio. So she talks about entrepreneurship and how she incorporated her love of dance to create a business. On the far right-hand side is, if you've heard of DSU's Gen Cyber camps. So this is Katie Schruck from Gen Cyber, and she's talking to a group of learners there, and they're talking about cybersecurity and everything to do with technology and computers and innovation, which, as we know, is just a field that's going to continue to grow. And we look now at, and being in a global pandemic, the need for people in IT and technical fields is just going to continue to skyrocket. So that's what those young ladies are doing. And then at the bottom, the bigger picture is a representative from SDSU Briggs Library, and he brought board games to show that, you know, you can have a career in almost anything. So he talks about how a degree in library science may allow you to play board games with learners on college campuses. So he came and talked about how he's an archivist and librarian, but he also gets to host a board game club. So talked a little bit about working in libraries and in public service, but then also what the fun side of working on a college campus can be. So that's a 6th through 8th grade experience. And then just to highlight our speakers and collaborations. So we had a great middle school FACS teacher that wanted to do a food truck face-off. And so she collaborated with our high school FACS teacher. So we've got high school learners there, and they're in the black chef coats in the picture. And then we have business and industry mentors. So Mr. Dean Martin is in the orange chef's hat. And then Mr. and Mrs. Call are in the red and in kind of the dark navy shirt there with the picture with the American flag in the background. And so throughout the year, we partnered our high school Culinary 2 kids with our middle school FACS program and brought in these business and industry mentors. And at the end of every quarter, you can see up there in the young man, he's holding the food truck with the donut on top of it. And then that's their food creation. And then they have a menu next to it as well. At the end of every quarter, we had a food truck face-off where learners got to feed one item from their menu to their peers in the cafeteria, and everybody got to vote on the best food truck, the best menu, and the best creation. We had admin come in and vote, we had all the students vote, we had educators vote, and we had the business mentors as well come in and give feedback to the kids on their process. I will tell you, it was absolute chaos, but it was amazing. I have never been a part of something that I was more excited to go to every single quarter. It was absolutely amazing. So that was for every learner that signed up to take Principles of Baking 1 in 8th grade at the end of the quarter. So we had about 130 kids that participated actively in that activity with the business mentors. And then in the very bottom left-hand corner here is the High School Culinary 3 program. And the person closest to us in the foreground is Chef Nicholas Skaevsky. He's the executive chef of Avera Hospitals groups here in Sioux Falls. And he came in, and he is one of the mentors for the Pro Start program at the high school. And so there he is demonstrating how to make, oh man, what were they making that day? Oh, profiteroles, which are fancy French things that I can't make, but these kids can because they are very skilled. So it's super awesome. And you can see they're all standing back there listening and looking to what Chef Skaevsky is saying. And he has been an absolute phenomenal mentor to us. He comes in and talks to the Culinary 2 and 3 kids about once a month. So he's there 8 to 10 times a year almost. So he's been an absolute blessing to our program. And I will say, you know, with COVID, things are going to look a little bit different, but we've already been reaching out to our business mentors, and so many of them want to continue these relationships with learners. It's the best part of their month or their week when they come in for an hour and give an hour of their time to our kids in our district. So a lot of them have already came and emailed me, and they're like, I don't know how to do Zoom, Breanne. Can you teach me that Zoom so that we can do this? And I'm like, yeah, I can teach you whatever you want to know so we can do this. And there's a couple folks that have put together some videos for our kids instead of coming in to actively speak in the classrooms as well. So just wanted to highlight those. We've also set up a bunch of industry tours over the couple of years. These have been really exciting. And I think what's nice is these are maybe the non-traditional careers that we don't maybe highlight a lot in modern education. These are careers that, you know, some of our kids are going to go to tech school and then they're like, well, I'm just a welder. or I'm just an electrician. And I want to really get away from that model and really get away from that type of language. I don't think that's true. We know every job is valuable and that every single person, you know, gives something back in what they're doing in their life. So the upper left-hand corner is Missouri Valley Machining Corporation in Rock Valley, Iowa. So we took everybody in our Metals 1 and Metals 2 classes, which predominantly this year was all gentlemen, but that is okay. And they came out and they gave the kids an entire tour of their precision manufacturing plants. And the comments that I heard from kids throughout the day were absolutely just amazing. They're like, wow, I didn't realize this was so clean. I didn't realize I could make so much money. I didn't realize I could have so many days off. I didn't realize that these are like real people. Like they thought it was all robotic and robots. I said, which it is. We saw a lot of automated processes, but there's still a lot of human interaction there that needs to happen for just the shipping and the labeling and the putting in of metal into machines and different things. So we took about 23 kids to Valley Machining, and that was a really, really great day. On the bottom there, we have students learning how to taste olive oil at Plum Cooking Company downtown in Sioux Falls. So these are our Culinary 1 students. And we have a industry tour partnership set up with Plum Cooking. They go once a quarter, so 4 times a year, and they do some type of activity like this. So they have an entire wall full of olive oils. If you ever get over here to this side of the state, go downtown to Plum Cooking. You will not be disappointed. It's a beautiful, beautiful home cooking store. But we bring our kids in and they sit around a huge demo table. She gave them 4 different cups of olive oil. She showed them how to warm them up. She showed them how to taste them. Very similar if you've done a wine tasting or a craft beer tasting, something like that. And so I was visiting with this group of 4, and I said, what do you think of this? Is it weird? Is it not? And they had to try to figure out what it tasted like and what the flavors were added to it. And it was just amazing. And so all 4 of these students at some point are working in the culinary industry. So Michael's working at Red Robin. Alexis has a part-time job in one of the nursing home kitchens. Sandos is working, Cabana Grill, I think, before it closed down for COVID. And then Maddie is actually going to go to culinary school out in Colorado. So she was super excited about all these things. So she's one of Mrs. Rombo's high flyers there in the culinary program. Then on the right-hand side, you have our young man here. We got the experience to take all of our students that were in the Home Builders Academy that were building those homes and in the Building Trades Construction Program. They got to go to the 101st Annual South Dakota Retail Lumber Association Trade Show. So all of our students were invited to that in Sioux Falls here at the Ramkota, and I have never been to a trade show like that before. I know nothing about building homes. I've been to education trade shows, but I can tell you it was the funnest part of like the quarter for me. It was so amazing. And these kids lit up. You can see the smile on his face, the young man there with his blue hat on. And they got to just walk around and talk to people that install steel roofing. And they got to talk about 2x4s, and they got to talk about high-end flooring, and they got to talk about bathtubs. And, it's all things you would think maybe our 16, 17, 18-year-olds wouldn't want to talk about or just don't have, the knowledge base to want to visit about. But they were so engaged. They were there for over 3 hours talking to everybody. And the takeaway from the businesses was phenomenal. I don't know if I made it through the whole thing because they're like, wait, you do what? How do you connect me with kids? And that's the thing I really want to share, with other educators in this session is businesses want your kids. They need your kids. It is challenging sometimes to get the two connected. I mean, there's transportation, there's logistics, there's COVID issues right now, but don't give up on those businesses because they truly need kids. They need employees, and they want to treat kids and employees really, really well because they want them to stay. More industry tours. The top picture was a tour of the Sanford Birth Center, which is pretty self-explanatory, but we got to go right at Christmas time. So that was really fun because the hospital was decorated and everybody was carefree and go lucky because it was Christmas time and everybody was happy. And all of these learners in the human development class got to go through the birth center tour, talk about the different careers inside of the birth center, from nurses to doctors, OBGYNs, surgeons, medical techs, all of that. So that was great. The bottom was a collaboration between the Sioux Falls Convention Center and the Visitors Bureau, which is now called Visit Sioux Falls. So this was the hospitality and tourism class with Mrs. Kern. And she came to me and she said, Breanne, can you put something together for me for my kids? And I said, I think we can. So I reached out to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and they said, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to talk to your kids. So they brought them out to the convention center. We walked through the hotel. We walked through the convention center. We got to see backstage. They were loading out a show. So we got to watch, how that process kind of works, how they load up all the big trucks. Just the questions the kids got to ask. We got to see some of the luxury suites in the hotel rooms, which kind of opens their eyes to what hotel management looks like, because they're used to maybe seeing the Super 8 or the Holiday Inn, which is totally fine, but just show them what different opportunities are out there. We got to go in the back in the kitchen, and we also got to go see the laundry facility, which for some of them was really great. We have some students that may be their future career, working in a laundry area or working back in the kitchen, back of the house situation. And they got to see what a career in that area could really look like. They were absolutely phenomenal. That was a really great tour that we took, I think, right away in February. One thing that I really want to say is make sure that you build intentional partnerships for your internships and your work-based learners, and even bringing people into your building at the K-5 level. So we've partnered with the Sioux Empire Home Builders Care Foundation and the Home Builders Academy. So they're the ones that helped us with the award of a workforce education grant to build the Morton building shed where our students build the houses. So Yankton has a similar program where they build one or two, maybe, I can't remember, but they build a home every year, and they have for many, many years. So we modeled our program off of theirs, especially the construction program. It's a phenomenal model. Reach out to those Yankton folks if you're interested in the building trades construction model, because they really have it figured out. Stanford Health is our healthcare partnership. So we run all of our healthcare internships through them. If we need anything in the healthcare world, we reach out to them first, and they've always been very, very accommodating for us. Southeast Tech has been a great partner for us as well. And we know we have technical schools across the state, but Southeast Tech will send an instructor to our building to instruct CNA courses. So we don't have to send kids to Southeast Tech and waste that travel time, although maybe only a half hour in and out by the time you park and things, but it saves our kids time on the road, and just for safety and security. They also are willing to offer a summer session of CNA where they just roll out their trailer to our campus and come back. So I know that they are open to those types of learning opportunities for other schools as well. So a summer session may be an option if somebody coming during the school year is not. And then I have to say again, the Harrisburg Chamber of Commerce has been a huge intentional partner for us. So with our partnership with the Chamber, we've been able to establish other partnerships with just smaller local businesses that typically would have been harder to reach. One example of those is the Dapper Dog Grooming Salon in Harrisburg. It's a small locally owned facility. It's a mom who does dog grooming on the side while she takes care of her 5 school-aged kids. It's hard when you run a business like that to respond to an email request from somebody like me, from an education person that says, hey, can you come in and talk to my students for an hour? But we sat down with her, with the chamber president, and said, hey, here's what we're looking for, and here's how we could help you. We've got a lot of kids that are interested in this area. Maybe they could volunteer or intern with you. And she goes, I'd love an intern. So she took one of our interns in the fall, and she had a great experience. And now she comes back every semester to talk to our companion animals class with Mr. Josh Christensen. So it's just been a phenomenal partnership working with the chamber, and the connections that they have been wonderful. Internships can be a tricky road. Again, we got a lot of guidance from Career Launch at the beginning, and then we kind of went through and made it more applicable to our area. But I'd say the big 3 things are going to be relationship, being consistent, and then your ROI. It's a business term there for some of us. But the first thing we do, Travis and I go out anytime we're going to establish or try to establish a new partnership for an intern or work-based learning experience, is we go out and meet those people at their location. And a lot of times business folks are willing to come to us, but I just think it puts some skin in the game if we're willing to give up our time and leave our building, or if we have to do it virtually, that's 100% okay. But we hand them this document. So it's the 8 things you need to know about internships. And this is just something we put together. I think a document like this really speaks a lot to what your program is, what it offers kids, and then what it's offering businesses. I think as prepared as you can be up front is really, really going to help establish that relationship and partnership. So go and meet them if you can physically. The next thing is be consistent. Create and set clear expectations for your learners, but also your business mentors and your business partners. So when Travis and I sit down to that meeting, we are very clear and say, hey, we realize that you may bring a kid in and you interview them, they're a great fit, you want them to be an intern, and 3 weeks into it, they're just not. And I said, well, what would happen in the real world? They said, well, we would do some coaching and mentoring and see what we could do. But ultimately, sometimes we have to let people go. And I said, you have every right to let somebody go. And I think that being able to say that to businesses really lets them know that we want this to be a real, authentic experience. We do not want this to be fake. We don't want this to be something that's going to give kids a false perception of how easy the business world or how easy the working world is. And I think just saying it too clears the air with businesses to let them know that this is still their business. We're not trying to take that over in any way, shape, or form. We just want to help them have future employees that want to stay in our communities. And then ROI, what's their return on investment? A learner can really provide some valuable input. We'll talk about one of our success stories here in just a second, but we had 518 Marketplace in Harrisburg, which is a conglomeration of a shared space with 4 different female-owned small businesses in one workspace. And the problem they were having is they just can't reach these high school kids. It has a coffee shop in there. It has a, could you try again? Sorry, has a coffee shop, a cupcakery, home decor, some clothing, those types of items. And they said, we just feel like we're missing the high school kids. Like they just drive right past us. They go to the Starbucks, the Scooters, the Dairy Queen, the B&G. They don't stop here in Harrisburg, and we really want them to stop here. So I said, I have an idea for you. I have a young gal that's interested in business, and she's interested in healthcare. She doesn't really know what she wants to do, but she'd like to do an internship in business. Would you like her help? And they said, yeah, absolutely. They're like, well, we don't know if we can pay her. And I said, that's okay. You know, we ultimately like our interns to be paid. Again, it puts some skin in the game for both parties there. But they said, well, we'll see how it goes. Maybe we can give her a stipend at the end. So don't let money be the issue for some businesses. Let them take your kids sometimes for free. I think they really truly see their value. And then I've never had a kid not get some type of monetary compensation after being an intern, even if at the end of it, it was like a thank you gift card to their business. So a lot of our interns are paid. About 60% of them are paid. Most of them are paid $10 an hour or more, depending on their job and their qualifications. Our Sanford medical interns that are placed are hired through Sanford as true CNAs because they must be CNA certified first before they go into the internship program. Those kids are making somewhere between $12 and $17 an hour. And so it depends on the area and their interests. So some of them that are in the clinic in the nursing home setting are the 12 to 15-ish dollar an hour. And then the 15 to 17 are the ones that are placed in the hospital setting that are maybe acute care, general surgery, renal, peds, those kinds of situations. So that's kind of our general internship overview there. The big questions that I always get is, how does this work? We try to schedule interns for a minimum of 10 hours a week for 10 weeks. So we want them to have a 100-hour experience in one semester. Now that may not always be feasible, so do what works for you, for your learners and your schedule, but we find that that works for us. It gives us that kind of 3 to 4 week leeway at the front to do that intensive learning course, a structured learning environment where we can hash out resumes, interview skills, talk about those soft skills, be very intentional in our instruction. But then it also leaves us about 12 weeks on the back end to do the actual interning part. So it gives us a little leeway if you've got kids that are in activities or they get sick or whatever that may be. But we're looking for about 10 hours a week for 10 weeks. And for some of our learners, that just doesn't work. So I mean, ultimately, you can do whatever you need to there to make it work for you and your district. But a lot of our medical interns end up working like 2/12s. They'd rather work a Friday, like a Friday night into Saturday, and then they'll work a Sunday day shift, especially if they're in the hospital setting. So it's just different industries have different expectations and requirements. Again, all of our internships, the goal is to have them paid at some point in some form. It doesn't always happen, but I've never had a learner be upset that they weren't paid. So the experience has always greatly outweighed whether or not they were paid or not. The next question we get a lot is workers' compensation. So if a learner is hired by the business, if they are an employee, that business has workers' compensation for that employee. Other questions that we're going to get are like about hazardous occupations. There isn't a document put out by the Fair Labor Standards for 16, 17, and 18-year-olds to use hazardous equipment if it's in a work-based learning situation. So you can Google that document and it tells you what kids can and cannot do. Also, those employers are very aware legally what kids that age can and cannot do. I mean, you would be surprised. They can do a lot, especially if they're in a work-based learning program situation. So if you have a course code and you have an instructor of record and that student is enrolled, that then opens up a lot of doors for them to be able to use some of that hazardous equipment. So before that, you wouldn't have been able to use a mixer in a bakery. But if you're in a work-based learning program, you can use a mixer in a bakery. You wouldn't be able to do certain plumbing or digging, that kind of thing. But if you're in a work-based learning program, you can do those things. Always double check, always consult your legal team in your district if you have any questions. I am not a legal expert, but that is what we know from our research and from working with our legal team and just looking through the labor standards. I'm going to look at just a couple success stories here, and then I will open it up for questions real quick, if that's okay. So we actually had some of our, this is so crazy. We went right before we closed for COVID, went out to the chamber and did a presentation with some of our kids that just wanted to share their internship experiences. So this is Lauren that I talked about. She was at 518 Marketplace. She was involved in HOSA, DECA, marching band, NHS, and church. So your interns do not have to be kids that aren't involved in anything. I think that's one of the misconceptions too. Like, how do you do this and be involved in school? It's definitely possible. She's hoping to attend a small private university. At the time, she was undecided between Gustavus in Minnesota and Augie here in Sioux Falls. She wanted to major in Spanish and biology and either be pre-pharm or pre-med. The most valuable part of her internship was making important connections within her community and meeting new people. And the benefits of being an intern are just networking and narrowing down her career path. So she was the one that was interested in medicine or business. Ultimately, I think she's going to head more towards the medical route, and that's okay. We've said too, you know, if you have an internship experience that was ultimately good, but you can cross a career off your list, that's an okay thing as well. This is Lyric. She was our Stanford acute care intern. She's involved in HOSA, youth group, church youth group, leadership board. She's an active community volunteer. She's a certified CNA. She's also a certified EMT, and she volunteers on the Canton Ambulance Squad. She's a super busy girl. She's going to go to Augustana in the honors program for biology pre-med, and she hopes to attend medical school. Again, the most valuable part of her internship was strengthening her patient interaction skills and networking. And the benefits of being an intern were just getting the exposure at her desired field at her age and the ability to stand out on resumes and applications. So she was really excited about that. Derek was our intern at the Dapper Dog Grooming Salon, and then in the spring he interned at All City Pet Care East because he's going to go to veterinary school, so he's going to go to SDSU and major in pre-vet. He was involved in student council and coached youth baseball. He liked to learn the basics of animal care and how to best present information to clients. He said that was by far the best learning outcome for him, is how to learn to interact with those people bringing their dogs into the grooming salon and the people bringing other folks into the pet clinic. And then just gaining an early grasp of his career path and meeting all sorts of new people. So there's our hashtag again, Tiger's Work. And what questions can I answer for you? Oh, I did it, 9:43. Let me stop sharing there.
I have made it where anyone can unmute themselves if they do have a question, or you can drop it in the chat. We have about, 7 minutes or so. So if you have them in there, get them out.
There's a question from, I think it's Miss Quayle in the Brookings area, saying they have to be 18 years old to volunteer through Habitat. That's not been true here in the Sioux Falls area. They had to be at least 16 years old, and then they had to have a signed parental release if they were 16 or 17. If they were 18, they could simply sign the paperwork themselves. So that may be a stipulation in your local Habitat area, but for us, we've not run into that problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What changes are, I'm not going to say it right, but I think it's Renee Owens. Says, what changes are you anticipating to your internship program during the coming semester due to COVID precautions? So we have already been visiting with Sanford Health. They are 100% willing to keep our kids. They want our kids. They need help. And just because of the precautions that they're taking and limiting the number of staff that they have in contact with patients. So they actually need more help, just so they can have more bodies in there to help facilitate their daily operations. So Sanford is very open to keeping our students. They feel that they have enough PPE and that they feel that during orientation, they will train students well to use it. So that's not a concern. Our local Harrisburg businesses as well don't have a concern right now. We do have cases in the Sioux Falls area, obviously, but many of them feel confident that if students and their parents are okay with wearing masks and following mask mandates, that they are comfortable having them in their business at this time. Larger organizations as well, our doors are still open here in the Sioux Falls and Harrisburg area, and as those things change, we may need to change as well. We do have a couple backup plans in place. I'm working on a podcast right now with the Harrisburg Chamber president, where it's going to be short, 15-20 minutes, where we can just talk business trends and how things have changed in a COVID world and how we can address those, and how being a learner in 2020 and 2021 maybe really sets them up for success in the future. All right, another question. Where were your 10 hours per week placement? Did that include classroom time? So our 10 hours a week does not include classroom time. We want those learners to try to get 100-hour, that's authentic, rigorous, relevant part of their education. So 10 hours a week for 10 weeks gets us to 100 hours. Does every learner get to that benchmark? No, but I've never had a learner be below 85. If that answers the question there for Ms. Quayle.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Breanne, can you talk a little bit about your position? I'm a business teacher at Brookings High School, so I teach business classes as well as coordinate our internship program.
Okay.
And we're coordinating this year with the South Dakota Economic Council, and they're helping with some placements because we are really struggling with the health science field, and because of the COVID and having placements. So we're exploring guest speakers through Zoom and possibly businesses creating videos. What other things are you experiencing for this uncertain year with the internship program?
Sure. Health sciences is always going to be tricky. When we sat down with Sanford, Travis, my colleague, had 2 interns placed with Sanford the year before I came. And that was sort of a trial dry run, and things went well. But then I will tell you, we've sat in many meetings with Sanford presidents and vice presidents and really had to plead our case and talk to them and explain, these are your future employees. If you want kids to stay in South Dakota and you want them to come back and work for you, we need to give them this real authentic experience. And it took a little bit of convincing. So I would say if you can get in a room and sit down with those folks and visit with them in your area, that would be my first piece of advice. And I know with COVID that could be difficult, but if you could get into a meeting with them of any kind. How our medical healthcare internships are working is I'm the CTE coordinator for the Harrisburg School District. So I coordinate all our work-based learning, all the internships, and then all our K-12 career exploration opportunities. So I work with any educator in the district that reaches out to me and says, hey, can you get a banker to come in and talk to my second graders about wants and needs? Yep, I can do that. I also work with students that come in to me and say, hey, I really want to be a dentist. Can I get an internship and be a dental hygienist assistant? And I say, sure, we can go to work on that. I will say that sometimes the answer is no. We don't get many no's, but we do get some. And as far as the COVID precautions go, again, many businesses that I've reached out to this year, just for the learner interest that I have, we've got about 32 kids that are interested in internship for the fall, and we have double that for the spring. We always have less in the fall with football and volleyball going on, and we always have more in the spring. They are fairly confident at this point that if their business is open, they will take our learners. All of our interns are 17 and 18 years old. Most of them are 18. We do have one business that's making them sign a COVID waiver, and that student is 17. So them and their parent will need to sign that document. We've also, we've been using the Department of Labor's career launch paperwork for work-based learning for paid internships and unpaid internships, but we also have a Harrisburg specific application, and Mr. Graff, our superintendent, and our legal team has put in a COVID provision in there, just specifically saying that if you and your learner are comfortable with your internship placement and were to be ill with COVID, that you can't sue the school district. So we're working on those types of provisions as well, just to protect everybody. But I will tell you, kids want to get out there. Most of our employers want our kids back. It's been sad for them to not have them around.